We're reviewing a topic that we did 2 or 3 years ago on secondhand play. This is an element of defense, obviously, and it can be really important to understand what the exceptions are to the usual caveat, secondhand low. I think most of you learned very early on 2 things about secondhand play. Number 1 was secondhand low, and number 2 is cover an honor with an honor. As Larry Cohen says, that'll get you by, but it may not serve you well. If you can put in a little bit of effort to learn the exceptions to secondhand low, your results on defense should improve immensely, simply because these are a few exceptions to those 2 rules, and a couple of the exceptions have exceptions themselves. Now, that sounds frustrating, I know, but everybody who plays this game knows that for all the rules, which are really guidelines, now remember that, there are exceptions. There are times when they don't work, with the exception of the rule of 11. The rule of 11 is mathematical, and it always works. So this lesson is for defenders only, and we're talking about when you don't play secondhand low. If you have touching honors and the declarer leads a card off the dummy, you should split them. What do I mean by splitting honors? I mean, play one of them. And when you're a defender, how do you play? When you have 2 honors here that are touching, when you're playing either second hand or third hand as a defender, you're going to play high here, but only as high as necessary. So when you're splitting your honors, you play the lower of touching honors. There are 2 exceptions, and we'll talk about those in just a minute. And then the other one is cover an honor with an honor. The exception here is if you can see all the honors that lie directly beneath your honor on the dummy, that means your partner doesn't have a card for you to promote, and there's no reason to cover. Maybe you have 3 cards in the suit, and the declarer has only ace doubleton, so he can take only 1 finesse. There's a good chance you might get that card anyway. But when you know that your partner cannot possibly have a card that can be promoted into winning a trick, it is better not to cover. Now, when the dummy has 2 touching honors, for instance, Queen Jack in the dummy, and you have King in your hand, assuming that declarer has the ace, wait to cover the second one. And I'll show you some examples about why that is important as well. Now, there are exceptions to these 2 guidelines here, and the exceptions have exceptions. So here's number 1. You want to promote honors, and sometimes you have to split. If I'm the declarer in this situation and I lead the 4 from my hand, if second hand doesn't play an honor, I'm inserting the 10. Now, I don't expect with 3 outstanding honors to have this work necessarily, but occasionally someone will fail to split an honor, and I'll get a second trick that I don't deserve. The declarer is entitled to only 1 trick on this holding. Notice it's 4-3-3-3 around the table, and sometimes second hand gets a little greedy and wants tricks with all 3 of those cards. But notice the way it's sitting here, there's no possible way that a declarer with any experience is not going to play the 10 if you don't play one of your honors. He is going to assume, looking at this, that there is the possibility that the honors are split. Remember, we've talked before about when you're missing honors, 25% of the time they'll all be on one side and 25% they'll be on the other side. But in the remaining 50%, they will be split in some fashion between the 2 hands. But occasionally, second hand will hold all of them, or the 4th hand will hold all of them even. And it's especially important when you're sitting with this particular holding and the ace is in front of you that you split your honors. Don't worry, declarer is never getting a trick with the 10. because you have the king and queen that are now promoted into 2 honors. And here's a little bit of a play lesson. If second hand doesn't split an honor here or doesn't play one, the correct play is to play the 10 in most instances, bearing in mind which hand is the danger hand. We talked about that a couple of weeks ago. If this fella on your right is the danger hand, then you never finesse into it and should play the ace. But all other things being equal, if the second hand fails to play an honor, declarer should insert the 10. And that's why it's really important for the second hand here to split or play one of those honors. Now, and of course, there's an exception to the exception. Most of the time, you're going to want to split your honors, but look at this instance here. If you split your honors, you have told the declarer where the other honor is, because there's no reason for second hand to play a high card here. I know there are a lot of people who think, oh, I better play a jack. If you're holding jack third, for instance, here as second hand, and you see this, a lot of people will play the jack thinking that they need to. If you don't have the jack, then hopefully you don't have the queen, but you have only the jack. You need to hope that partner has the queen for the declarer to take a double finesse like that. And it's entirely possible that he has the queen, but then in that case, there would be no particular reason to finesse. Notice he's 4-3-3-3 here. This is very balanced. Now, if this is a long suit and you think that declarer is short, that changes things a little bit. But when you have this kind of situation, second hand has absolutely no way of gaining anything when he splits his queen jack here. If that happens, finesse worked once, so to speak, or you trapped. This is an entrapment play rather than a true finesse. Declarer will come back to his hand in another suit and repeat the finesse. Now, by playing low, second hand makes declarer guess, and anytime you can make an opponent guess, you give him the opportunity to make a mistake. On this layout, after a low card's played, especially since I have a third trick, I'm going to try the 10. I know the odds are against having that work, but every now and again it does. But if for some reason you don't want to finesse, maybe your right-hand opponent is the danger hand and you can't afford to, then you have to play the ace and king, hoping that the queen will drop. But most times, if I'm holding this particular setup here, I'm going to lead toward the 10. Even if it loses, I'm hopeful that I will take the remaining 3 tricks. But here, second hand does not split, because it gives the declarer an opportunity to take all the tricks in this suit, if he does. Notice, if you split, or if you don't split your honors, because the 10 was played, well, okay, now he can play ace and king, and that little 2 will drop. But if you do split your honors, he's going to come back to his hand after he takes the ace, and will lead toward it again. So no matter what you do, you don't get a trick if you split your honors. But if you do play low, declarer may or may not play the 10. You give him an opportunity to make a mistake. And anytime you can do that, you have improved your chances for success. If he needs 4 tricks from the suit, he has to hope that both honors are to his left, and he must play the 10. Now, a lot of you don't play in games where your opponents have this kind of reasoning skill and trying to count the number of tricks he needs from a suit. This makes it all the more important for you to play low, because there are a number of people who play in limited games who would never play the 10 here. Some of them will, and this is a case where it pays to know your opponents. But when you have this kind of holding, don't split your honors. Here's the second exception. I think most of you remember 2 or 3 weeks ago, we talked about asking yourself, why is the declarer playing this suit this way? Particularly in this situation, if you look at the dummy and you see this mess of hearts here, you think, okay, why is the dummy leading the 10 off the board? Declarer leads the 2. Notice what we said before. Don't split your honors in this case, because if dummy inserts the ace, well, you're going to get a trick. If he plays the 10, you have to stop and say, why didn't the declarer try to play the ace and king to try to drop my queen? The simple answer is here, he doesn't have the king. He's taking a very deep finesse. Notice he has the 10, 9, 8, 7, 6 here. He's missing a bunch of honors. If he had the king with 9 cards between him, he would play for the drop, wouldn't he? 8 ever, 9 never. Everybody's heard that one, right? Well, in this case, you have to say, why in the world is the declarer doing this? Why is he leading low up to the ace 10? And when you don't know the answer, when it's not obvious, don't split your honors. Watch what happens if you do. Partner is sitting over here with a singleton. It's not hard to see that partner could have a singleton, is it? You can see 9 of the cards in this heart suit between your hand and the dummy. How are the outstanding cards most likely to be split? They're most likely to be split 3-1 rather than 2-2. It's close, but the odds slightly favor 3-1. So with that situation, don't you think if the declarer had a singleton, he'd play the ace? I would, generally. So the fact that he played the 10 should lead you to believe that he has more than one heart in his hand. But no matter what you figure at this stage, you know your partner doesn't have very many hearts. If he has a singleton, could it be the king? You bet it could. You know declarer probably doesn't have the heart king because honors from the short side first. If he needs to be in the dummy, for instance, he's trying to drop all these missing honors, and they will all drop. If he has the ace and king, then the queen and jack will drop if they split even 2-1. But he's not playing that way. He's led low. Second hand remembers the first exception and plays low when the finesse can be repeated. He not only has the 10, he has the 9. So second hand needs to stop and say, why is he doing that? He pretty obviously doesn't have a singleton. If I were playing this suit, how would I do it? I would play the honor from the short side. Then I would take a finesse if I needed to, but he's taking a finesse on the first round. So in the event that partner has a singleton honor, it is important for second hand to play low. If he plays one of his honors, dummy will play the ace, and look what happens to partner's king. It comes crashing down. Another reason that second hand should play low here is that if he stops and thinks, he will realize that if he plays one of his honors, he has solved declarer's problem for him. He absolutely needs to put the declarer in the position of having to guess. What do I need to do to make the declarer guess how to play this? If I play one of my honors, he can take the ace, and then partner will be very unhappy. Partners don't like it when they have a singleton honor and their partners play the ace, or they play a card that forces declarer to play the ace and crashes their honors. One thing that it's really important to remember to do is to ask yourself, Why is the declarer playing this combination this way? Why is he not playing the ace? Why is he not playing the king first, followed by the ace, or followed by a finesse to try to drop my queen? The defense is entitled to 2 tricks here, but to get 2 tricks on this kind of layout, second hand must play low. Otherwise, they get only 1. Now, the next rule that we've all heard for second hand play is cover an honor with an honor. Well, there's one important exception here that we start with, and that is when you have a situation like this first one shown here. Second hand can see that there is no card in partner's hand that he can promote. All of the queen, jack, and 10 are all in the dummy. If he plays the king, all he does is set up the suit for the declarer. And it's also possible that the declarer cannot take 2 or 3 finesses simply because he doesn't have enough cards in the suit. You don't know how many declarer has for sure. You have to wait and see what partner tells you about his holding. But in this instance, when you can see the jack and the 10, you know that this suit is only going to be played 3 times. So there is absolutely nothing to be gained here by covering the queen. Nothing at all. You can't promote a card in your partner's hand. The whole reason for covering an honor for an honor is to try to promote a card in your partner's hand. And when that is not going to happen, don't cover the honor. But notice here, declarer will succeed in taking a trick with the queen. He can play the jack again, but it's not going to do him any good. He might as well just play the 4 because he has to play the ace on the second trick. Now, the rest of his cards are not set up. If he left the jack there, well, that's fine. He may have been trying to get second hand to put the king on, hoping that he has only 2 cards as well. But if you resist the impulse to cover that honor with your king, you can see that declarer will have to play his ace. And especially if you're playing no trump, you stand a really good chance of getting a trick with that king anyway. Since you don't know what the situation is exactly when he leads the first time, don't cover. Primarily because you know you cannot promote anything in your partner's hand. When you can't promote anything for your partner, don't cover an honor. Now, that sequence of honors, like we saw in that previous example, gives you a hint as to when you should play any honor, high honor, let's say an ace or a king, when the declarer leads a lower honor off the dummy. When there are 2 or more touching honors in the dummy, it is usually best to wait to cover the second one if there are only 2, or the last one if you can. If you have a holding, though, that will enable you to cover 2 honors, well, cover the last honor unless you have the ability to cover 2 of them. On this next slide, dummy is going to have 2 cards rather than 3 that are touching. So, queen and jack, note, no 10 here. When there are 2 honors in the dummy, second hand plays low to guard that second honor. The rule basically works like this. When you have an honor that will cover a lower honor in the dummy, you can see it, you wait to cover the last honor in the sequence. So on the lead of the queen, second hand plays low. Declarer plays low, and lo and behold, partner produces the ace. Hey, I thought maybe declarer had the ace, but he didn't. Cool. My partner took the ace. Now, watch this. That jack that's left in the dummy, I've shown this over here, the jack that's left in the dummy is trapped between the 10 and partner's hand and your king because you kept the king to guard the jack. Now you can see that declarer's not going to take any tricks in this suit. Correctly played by the defenders, they will take all 3 tricks here, unless this little card that's left in the dummy needs to have an entry for declarer to be able to get a trick with that last little card. Partner should lead the 10 back. He can see the jack. If the declarer has the missing king, well, he wasn't getting but 1 trick anyway. But on this layout, the defense gets 3 tricks when they play it correctly. When there are 2 honors in the dummy, wait to cover because you never know what might happen. Here's another one. Queen jack in the dummy again. Second hand plays low on the queen, and this time declarer does have the ace. He plays low, and the queen holds the trick. Now, when he comes back to lead the jack, he's still in the dummy. Remember, he won the trick with the queen. Now he will lead the jack. He wishes he had the 10, but he doesn't. He leads the jack. Now second hand covers. He has to play the ace and look at the card that's left in partner's hand. Is this the layout of a suit every time you're going to run into it? No, of course not. Declarer may have the 10 instead of the 9, but you cover the second honor in the hopes that you can promote something in your partner's hand. If you can't, well, you were never getting the trick that you wanted to get. But this gives you the best opportunity to take more tricks on defense. Watch what happens if the second hand covers the first honor that's led. Queen's led, king is played, ace is played, 3. Now your partner's 10 is trapped between the 9, 8, and the jack in the dummy. An experienced declarer will lead the 9, and if the 10 is not produced, he will duck by playing the 2. That is the correct technique for maximizing his number of tricks in the suit. But if you wait to cover the second honor, partner's 10 is promoted. I don't know of a better example that illustrates this any better. When there are touching honors in the dummy, and you have the next one up, wait till that second honor is led to cover. Here's a question that comes up really often. At least people ask me very, very frequently. Dummy has a singleton and I have the ace. It is rare at the table when a singleton is led not to see a defender hop up with an ace. In fact, it seems like a silly question, doesn't it? Well, inevitably, you're setting up tricks for the declarer when you take your ace. But it's natural to feel like you're not going to get it if you don't take it immediately. But there's one thing about this game, guys. When an answer seems obvious, it often isn't if you think about it and think about the logic that you need to consider when looking at this situation. Here we have an example. This is a possible layout for declarer. He has only 1 loser instead of 2 here if he has enough trumps to rough these out. But if you're east and you're defending, let's say it's a spade contract. This is the diamond suit. South leads that singleton off the dummy. And you think, okay, well, I'm probably setting up the king for the declarer if I do. Do I really want to do this, or should I take this ace to bed with me if I have to? Well, on this layout, watch what happens. If you grab your ace, South is still going to have that 1 diamond loser that he was counting on when he counted losers, when he made his plan. If you grab the ace, he has the queen and jack left in his hand. And he knows if he's playing against an experienced pair that his left-hand opponent has the king. Because if, in this case, East or second hand had ace king, he'd have played the king, not the ace. He'd have played the king, not the ace. He's now set up a roughing finesse. He can lead the queen. If your partner covers, he roughs and his jack is now good. But if you don't play the ace, he has no choice but to play one of his honors, and partner gets a trick with his king. Now, since you have the high card over here in your hand, declarer doesn't have the opportunity a roughing finesse succeed. In other words, because you have the high card rather than your partner, because you correctly played low, declarer's options are limited. He no longer has the opportunity to take extra tricks in this suit. Let's have another example. Here you have the same situation. There is a singleton in the dummy. So second hand says, should I play it? Should I not? And I will tell you, I've heard Dawn say this often enough. Remember, when you see a singleton in the dummy and you have the ace, decide ahead of time what you're going to do when that 6 is led off the dummy. Don't fumble with your cards or hesitate or sigh or any of that stuff. If you're going to play low smoothly. Most of the time it will be right to play low. Play low smoothly. This time, if you jump up with your ace, you have solved declarer's problem for him. He wants to try to figure out a way not to lose 2 tricks in this suit, doesn't he? If you take the ace, declarer's king is now good. He still has 1 diamond loser, but he counted that. What he doesn't want is 2 diamond losers. He can use the king. If you've hopped up with the ace, he can use the king to discard a loser out of the dummy. But what if you play low here? I've got 2 6s in this hand, don't I? Sorry. 6 in the dummy and the 6 in the second hand. I think I have the right number of cards. I'm just missing the 2, it appears. But let's say the 6 is led. The second hand plays the 4. Now declarer has to guess. How often do you guess right in this situation, folks? My track record is not impressive. It seems sometimes I guess right, and on those days I feel like I need to go buy a lottery ticket. But most of the time, I play the jack, and sure enough, left-hand opponent has the queen, and now I don't have a good card at all. It's an example of making the declarer guess again. In this situation, he doesn't know what to do. I mean, if one of you bid, he may have an idea, but we all know that just because one player is more likely to hold one card than the other, then that's not necessarily the case. Sometimes the wrong opponent has that high card, the one you placed in the other opponent's hand. Well, South can play the king and avoid a loser in the suit. What will he do? A lot of times he'll say, well, second hand probably doesn't have the ace, because seeing that singleton in the dummy, he'd have hopped up there with it in order to make sure he gets it. I think my left-hand opponent has the ace, so I'm going to play the jack. That's the way a lot of people would think. And there are a lot of people who would play the ace on a singleton. But hard as it is to do, when the dummy leads a singleton and you are the next person to play, it is usually best not to play the ace. I'm not saying it's always right, but most of the time it will be. But remember, if you're going to play low in this situation, you don't squirm in your seat. You don't sigh. You don't sit there and think. You don't fiddle with your cards. You pull that 4 out of your hand and just put it on the table smoothly. Because if you fiddle around, you have told everybody at the table where the ace is. So, and at that point, you might as well play it because declarer no longer has a guess. But decide ahead of time what you're going to do when that 6 is let off the dummy. Most of the time, it will be right to duck. Now, there are times when the second hand needs to play high. Some people will call that blasphemy or heresy or any other one of those kind of words, because that's counter to everything you've been told regarding secondhand play. But look at this example. Here you are sitting in the East chair again, and only this time you're defending 3 no trump. West leads the spade 6, 4th from his longest and strongest. He certainly hopes that partner has a card that will help him here. It's usually my experience that I'm leading right into the King Jack. This is a risky combination for a lead, but it works here because notice, partner has the Jack 10 to help out. Anyway, for better or for worse, West has let his 4th best down from a broken tennis here. Declare calls for a low card from the dummy. Now, East is going to play not the Jack, but the 10. He plays the 10 because playing the Jack would deny having the 10. In this situation, declarer knows he cannot allow that card to hold, because he's going to continue a spade right through that king, and declarer will end up not getting any tricks in the suit if he doesn't take that king right now. So he says, okay, I have a spade trick. I have 6 diamond tricks, barring some horrendous split. And I have the ace of clubs. I now have 8 tricks. So I need one more. Obviously, the heart suit is the best opportunity. When you have something like this and you want to try to steal a trick, it's best to do it early, before the defenders have had a chance to figure out how the cards lie around the table. So after South wins the king of spades, he should play a small diamond over to one of these diamond honors and lead the 2 of hearts off the board. Well, East is sitting here thinking, okay. He's led a small card. I've heard over and over and over again that aces are meant to capture kings and queens. So I should probably play low here. And besides, I've always heard secondhand low. But how does East know that that's not the right play? Does anybody have a thought? Should East play the ace or should he duck?
Well, I think he should play the ace because the strong diamond hand in dummy, he should take control and lead back the spades to his partner.
Well, that's very good reasoning. That is a very strong dummy. That's a very threatening dummy, isn't it? We've talked before about active versus passive defense, and that is definitely a dangerous dummy. There are 7 tricks in that dummy, and declarer has already taken the king of spades, hasn't he? There's one important thing here that will tell you for sure that it's right to go up with the ace here. And that is, if you and your partner use 4th best leads, the lead of the 6 of spades says there are 5 cards outstanding between the remaining 3 hands that are higher than the 6. East could see 4 of them, and the declarer played the king. That it was the only other card higher than the 6 that was outstanding. East knows his partner's suit is ready to run. If he allows South to steal a heart trick, that's his contract. So he has to hop up with the ace of hearts, put that jack of spades on the table, followed by the 8, and the contract will be set. There are 2 reasons why East needs to play the ace then. Number 1, this is a very threatening dummy, and the defense has to get their tricks ASAP because Declarer has 8 tricks in the bag. All he needs is 1 more. How do you know he has 8 tricks? He took the king of spades, and you can see 7 tricks on the board. It doesn't take any esoteric reasoning at all to figure that out. The other thing is the rule of 11 tells East that his partner's spade suit is ready to run. So it's time to hop up with that ace of hearts and put a spade on the table, preferably the high one. Remember, you got to get the high cards out of your hand so that you can lead over to partner's suit. Now then, are you ever going to get a trick with a king of clubs? Probably not, because Declarer is going to discard his losing clubs on those diamonds. So this is all skills that you guys know. Number 1, the rule of 11. East knows that his partner, he hopes he has a 5-card suit. He can't see all the low cards. If he has only a 4-card suit, oh well. We've done the best we could to defeat this contract. So it's right to do that, whether or not partner has a 5-card suit or a 4-card suit. It would be very unusual for partner to lead low from a 3-card suit. Occasionally you see it done, but not very often. So he has to hope, he has to take that ace of hearts and hope that his partner has a 5-card suit. The odds favor it because there are only 2 of them in the dummy, and East has 3. The other thing is he knows that Declarer already has 8 tricks. All he has to do is steal a heart for his contract. So he has to jump up with the ace of hearts and hope that partner can take 4 spade tricks. That will be enough to set the contract. Good reasoning, Debbie. Here's another instance when it's right to play second hand high. In this case, you're East again, and your partner West opened 2 spades. South ends up in 3 no trump anyway, and you can see why here, right? Declarer takes the opening lead of the queen with his king. If he plays the ace, then that tells everybody at the table that he has the king, because if he had the ace without the king, he would hold it up, and he did not. So he's trying to be a little bit deceptive and plays the king in the hopes that he can convince the defense that East holds the ace. But if East had the ace, he'd have played it on the first trick. So this deception should fool no one at all. So he then goes to the dummy with a heart and leads the queen of clubs off the table. He has to develop some tricks and clubs to make his contract, doesn't he? So now the question is, East doesn't know who has the ace at this point. He has the king, though, and he knows that partner's hand has limited entries. He knows that his partner might have the ace of spades because, after all, from ace, queen, jack, 10, the correct lead is the queen, top of the interior sequence. If that's the case, then the only thing that he has are spades, and there's no outside entry. However, he doesn't know which it is. In the eventuality that partner has the ace of clubs, East must jump up with his king in order to retain the entry in the hand with the long suit. If he plays low and then East has to play his ace, he can lead another spade to clear the suit, But even when East gets in with the king of clubs, he has no spade left to return. And all those spades that are ready to run sit there gathering dust and not taking tricks. They become discards. Here's an important concept. It looks like we should wait to cover the 10, doesn't it? But in this case, you know that your partner has 6 spades. You're not sure what his holding is. If he has the ace of clubs, he has to keep it. If he has the ace of spades, you're not beating this contract anyway. So what East has to do is jump up with that king of clubs. He expects the declarer to put the ace on it, but when he doesn't, he can lead his last spade to clear the suit. Declarer still has to set up clubs to get enough tricks, but the ace of clubs is left in the hand that has the long, now set up spade suit. When he takes the ace of clubs, he rattles off enough spade tricks, 4 more, for a nice 2-trick set. But the issue is, East has to be willing to sacrifice his king, maybe, to preserve an entry that his partner may have. As I said, if declarer has the ace, it costs nothing, because that would mean that partner has the ace of spades. And if that's the way the cards lie, you can never beat 3 no trump. So always play or defend in a manner that fits with what will defeat or make a contract. If you need the cards to lie a certain way to be successful, play as though that's the way they are. It doesn't do any good not to. When there is a way that the contract can be defeated, assume that that's what exists and play accordingly. It won't always work out, but what kind of sense does it make to play in a manner that's not consistent with something that will defeat the contract? There's no future in that. So if you need for your partner to have an outstanding ace somewhere, if it's the ace of clubs, you have to step up with the king and try to clear the suit for your partner. Now, in summary here, second hand low, unless you have touching honors. You split the honors to ensure a trick, noting the exceptions that we talked about. When you know that your partner is very short in a suit, say he has a singleton, if that singleton is an honor, don't split your honors. And if declarer can take a finesse and repeat it, don't split your honors. You just tell him where the remaining honor is, because otherwise there's no reason to play an honor as second hand unless you're splitting, trying to get a trick. So when there is a finesse available that the declarer can take, don't help him. He may guess wrong. And if he does, then you're way ahead of the game. The other exception is, if your side has the setting trick set up, don't play second hand low. If you can take the trick, hop up there. In other words, this is what number 3 says down here. If your partner's long suit has been set up in a no trump contract and you can take a trick and lead his suit so that he can do it, don't sit there and think about, oh, I need to wait and cover this. Setting the contract takes precedence over everything else, any other rule. That threatening dummy that you saw in this example is a perfect example of this kind of situation. So when you can set a hand, don't hesitate to hop up with a high card and return partner's suit. That is extremely important. And the other time that you want to play second hand high, remember, is when you're trying to preserve an entry in your partner's hand. because you don't have enough cards in his suit to be able to get to his hand any other way. Like the previous example, when you only had 2 spades and your partner had opened 2 spades, showing 6, it takes 2 leads to set up that contract. You need to preserve the entry in the hand with the long suit as long as possible. So when that situation is what exists, second hand needs to hop up with a high card in an attempt to take the trick. It may be that partner's entry was not in that suit. Oh well. Nothing works all the time except the rule of 11, as I said. But you're doing the best you can to try to help partner take his tricks in the suit that he led. Second exception is cover an honor with an honor, unless if the lead is from touching honors, wait and cover the second one or the last one, whichever it is. The exception to that is don't cover the honor if you can see that there is absolutely nothing to promote in your partner's hand. The only reason for covering an honor with an honor is to try to promote a trick in your partner's hand, or maybe it's in your hand. For instance, maybe you have the king 10 small in your hand. Declarer has the queen jack on the board. Duck that queen and then cover the jack. He'll have to play the ace, and then you have the good 10 in your hand. If you can see a card that can be promoted, wait and cover the last one, and then your card can be promoted. But if you can't see that card on the dummy or in your hand, cover the last honor in the hopes that your partner has it. I have covered many an honor hoping my partner has a card that's promotable, only to be disappointed and discover that the card I was hoping was in partner's hand was in declarer's hand. Does that mean it's not right to cover when the last honor? Absolutely not. It's the right thing to do on the right layout. And since you don't have any way of knowing where all the spot cards are, you play according to the guidelines, hoping that this is one of the times when it works. So remember, second hand low, unless it's one of these exceptions here that we've talked about. Remember to play second hand high when you have touching honors and you want to split them to promote a trick or tricks for your side. Or if you know that you can take the setting tricks or your partner can take the setting tricks, hop up with that high card and take the setting tricks to set the contract. Cover an honor with an honor, unless there's more than one honor in the dummy. Then wait to cover the second one or the last one. But if you can see all the cards directly below that honor that was led off the dummy, there's nothing to promote. Play low and hope that you can eventually get a trick with the king, because obviously covering will not accomplish anything. Thanks for coming.
Hi, this is Susan. Thanks for stopping by the Oklahoma Collective's YouTube channel. Basically, this channel shows recordings of our free 1-hour bridge lessons for advancing players that we offer every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. Central Time. If you would like to join us, send your contact information to the email address shown on the screen, and we'll be happy to send you the link. If you would like to follow our channel and be notified when a new recording is uploaded, just
push the subscribe button below.
Thanks for stopping by. Bye.